Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. It's travel day for the Browns. They are headed to Chicago, where they will face the Bears. Saturday, 1 o'clock, first preseason game. Former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger, what he sees in the 2026 Cleveland Browns.
It's interesting because obviously Andrew Berry's done a good job in the draft. I thought the Browns crushed the draft this year, with what they brought in, the haul that they had, and the different positions that they addressed to go with last year's draft, which was very productive. And so I feel like Todd Monken's taken over a young team. I have not seen a team this year where a team is trying to start 5 new offensive linemen. And for a long time, when you would come to Cleveland, you go back to Joe Thomas or Joe Bitonio or Wyatt Teller, you knew there was going to be some veterans up front. And there are 5 new guys. And so what George Warhop and Bobby Johnson have to do right now is blend those guys. So I'm interested to see the chemistry and how quickly that comes together.
Absolutely, fair point. The Browns' offensive line was so bad and so beat up the last 2 years, it can't go backwards. It can only go up. Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, on Todd Monken and how he's handling the quarterback competition. This is from 92.3 The Fan.
Todd doesn't strike me as someone as sort of a grizzled, old-timey coach, if you will, who's going to succumb to peer pressure or social media pressure or whatever. I would imagine he doesn't spend a lot of time on social media. But he also is a pretty competitive guy and is all about winning, and we've seen him at various stops. He can handle young players, but he also comes from an era where, tough love might be the answer. So whether that's Deshaun or Shedeur, I think it doesn't really matter in the short term for the organization. I think it matters for Shedeur and find out whether he is anything more than a one-year stopgap.
And again, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Todd Monken will be coaching his first NFL game. It's a preseason game, but his first NFL game as a head coach. Browns beat reporter Daryl Ryder, 92.3 The Fan, his thoughts on the current state of the Browns quarterback competition. Remember, Deshaun Watson will start Saturday against Bears.
I think they're close. I don't see a lot of separation between them. Again, I don't. I think that this, when you hear the, neck and neck or whatever, I don't think that there's a separation between these guys or a significant separation between them. And that's what makes this difficult, Andy. The fact that there is no separation between them. That makes the decision even harder.
Well, it's usually what happens when you have a quarterback competition. It's because there isn't one quarterback who is head and shoulders above the other. The interesting thing is going to be Deshaun Watson is starting against the Bears. Todd Monken has said that Shedeur Sanders will be starting against the Bills. Remember, there's joint practices the week of the Bills game. Usually, ones don't play when there's joint practices. So you might have Shedeur Sanders starting and playing with the twos. That's going to be interesting. All that said, longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with his thoughts on if the quarterback competition has been fair to Shedeur Sanders.
I think it's as fair as it could be. I hate quarterback competitions because they're counterproductive. They don't get the team ready for the season.
That's right.
And that's where they're at. And I don't know how it could be any more fair. Okay?
But you have said that you feel like if Watson was the guy who was popular with the fans and Shedeur was the guy who was unpopular with the fans, but they were playing exactly the same, that Watson would have been named the starting quarterback already.
I haven't said that.
But I guess, do you believe that?
Listen, I'll put it this way. If Deshaun Watson's name wasn't Deshaun Watson and that player without any history with the Browns, let's say he was a transition veteran quarterback that they brought in.
Yeah.
And people who go out there every day and watch him would say, that guy looks a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, but because he's Deshaun Watson.
But you're not saying that he would have won the job already.
No.
I think that's absolutely fair, and I'll take it a step further. Todd Monken is right around 60 years old. He's getting his first chance to be an NFL head coach. Do you really think he's going to put somebody that isn't the better quarterback in when he's been coaching his whole life to get this opportunity? He wants to win football games. He's going to play the quarterback that gives him the best chance to win. Some news from Chicago coming out earlier this afternoon, rather. Ben Johnson said the Bears will sit, quote, a number of their starters against the Browns, and that will include quarterback Caleb Williams, who will not play against the Browns. So the Browns will not get to see Caleb Williams at quarterback, starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Also, remember, Jedrick Wills is in Bears camp as the number 2 left tackle, so they might get to see Jedrick Wills trying to protect whomever is a quarterback for the Bears. Let's turn our attention to the Guardians and head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. Love the show. Do you think there's a chance that Manzo gets a call back up from AAA, back on the Guardians roster before the playoffs hit? I feel like he was just kind of starting to get hot. The bat was starting to go, and they sent him down. Because I know the whole roster's, in flux with all the new changes they made, so I'm just curious. Do you think he's coming back up? Just want to hear your thoughts. Go Guards.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. He's got to start hitting down there. Right now, he is only hitting .222. He's 4 of 18, does have a home run. The problem with Manzardo is, he was 13 of 78, so he's batting 167, 29 strikeouts. That's a 37% strikeout rate. That's what he's been doing since July 1st. He's got to hit better. If he hits better, they haven't solved first base, but Manzardo's got to hit better, especially if you're hitting in the middle of the lineup, and the Guardians need to get the offense going again. Not happening against the Tigers, so they're going to drop 2 of 3 in Detroit. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We're talking Browns when we return. Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Up first, Sports4CLE talking Browns ahead of the Bears game. We'll be right back after this timeout.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state, so come on.
Browns are up first on Sports4CLE. Todd Monken informed the quarterbacks Wednesday afternoon, so yesterday, that Deshaun Watson will start the first preseason game Saturday in Chicago against the Bears, and that he plans to start Shedeur Sanders in the second preseason game at home next Saturday against the Bills. Deshaun Watson yesterday asked about all of the turnovers early in camp and the sloppy play of the offense.
I think the biggest thing is just really, I think what we just talked about is just those mistakes. The interceptions, the turnovers, the bad operation. Those things get you beat. So, again, I think that's the biggest thing where you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to you got to learn from it. You got to pick your spots. And sometimes, we might get a little too greedy and, try to do some things and it goes the wrong way. And then we got to go back and watch the tape and know in this situation, these are the things that can lose you ball games. And be able to check it down. So, you take that, you put it in your memory bank, and then the next rep, you try to improve from it. I think every interception especially at this time of the year, you kind of got to look at them differently. In certain situations, what are we working on? What throws are we working on? Have I tried this throw before? We might have tried it in route air and see if I can try it in a live period. And, sometimes the defense make a good job, and then also, sometimes it might be a bad throw or a bad decision. So, you kind of got to grow from them, and it's better to have those moments now rather than an actual game.
So welcome in Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Pete, you've been out at camp pretty consistently. What do you make of the way Watson has played? Reports are it's been better, but the bar's pretty low there.
Yeah, I haven't seen much to change my view that he's going to suddenly be an answer. I think he's largely been the 2024 version. Having said that, there might be something to the idea that he's trying to push the envelope in terms of throws he's trying to make. I would push back and say that given his track record, which is in Cleveland awful, that he should probably just do everything right and make it look as good as possible rather than worry about testing things, because there's there's nothing to suggest that he's good enough to do that at this point. So if he had a better track record and you're saying, okay, he's trying to push the envelope, I sort of get it. But overall, it's still the stuff he does wrong. There's issues with touch. There's issues with some of the decisions he makes. There's some other things that are problematic. The one thing I will give him credit for is he does a really good job at the pre-snap operation. He's really good at putting them in the right plays and getting them in advantageous positions. But I don't think he's where he needs to be in terms of being able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, and that's surprising because he is a guy that's been in the league so long. So yesterday we found out Watson's supposed to play the first half in the first game. Shedeur will start against the Bills. Remember, though, that's a game after joint practices, and typically most of the first team does not play in the preseason game when there are joint practices that week. Do you think Todd Monken changes that, or do you expect to see Shedeur working with the twos to start against the Bills?
I actually think both quarterbacks are going to end up working with the twos quite a bit. I mean, I know Todd Monken is saying that the starters are going to play, and I can only hope that is one play and then we're done. But regardless, he's not intending on having them out there that long. And the first offensive line is going to be out there as long as the Bears' first offensive line is out there, or the defensive line is out there. So if the Bears aren't playing anybody, the Browns aren't going to be out there very long. So you're going to see both guys with the twos a lot. Now, having said that, that still may mean a whole lot of Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, Isaiah Bond, those type of players, which a lot of people want to see anyway. So that could end up working out for both guys anyway, because those are really talented players that actually could do some damage against maybe the twos of other teams. So I understand the idea that, well, it doesn't look great because they're theoretically with the twos, but actually might work to their advantage to get to play with maybe talent that's better than the opponent's going to have at that stage of the game.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the need for Shedeur Sanders to kind of avoid the catastrophic plays, be it a sack or a turnover. Take a look at this from Warren Sharp, Sharp Football. Why avoiding sacks is so important for quarterbacks. On a drive with 0 sacks, that is in the first column, average points per drive, 2.2. Percentage of drives that score touchdowns, 25. Percentage of drives that scores points, 40. Percentage of drives ending with a punt, 32. And you look over when you have just 1 sack, it cuts the points in half. You go down to 8% touchdowns. You go down to 25% of points. And you go up to 51% with punts. It's one of those things that offenses, even really good veteran offenses, struggle to overcome when there's a sack in a drive.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Schwartz always talked about when he was the defensive coordinator that a sack usually ends the drive. I mean, that's it. So if you're the quarterback and you're taking sacks, you are putting your team in a position to kill drives. And look, whether it's these guys that they have right now, or if we get into the talking about the draft, whether it was this past year or looking at 27 and 28, this is a thing that a lot of teams are looking at in terms of sack rate and how well these guys deal with this for this exact reason. Negative plays kill the offense. And Shedeur Sanders, for his part, has done a really good job in camp protecting the football and trying to avoid turnovers and being smart from that end. But yeah, this is a huge key for all the quarterbacks to avoid sacks, avoid negative plays. This team cannot afford to be consistently in 3rd and long. They need to be on schedule. They need to end up in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Be in those situations where you have that run and pass as viable options, and maybe set up 4th and short if all else fails, and be able to keep the offense on the field that way.
Yeah, I mean, what you're basically saying is 3rd and short makes a quarterback significantly better because it gives the offense more options. You've been out at camp regularly. What's your biggest takeaways, things you're excited about, and we'll flip it and go things you're concerned with as well?
Yeah, so the thing that jumps out to me immediately is the wide receiver talent is completely different than it was last year. Denzel Boston has obviously been really impressive and gotten all kinds of press, and I think it's absolutely warranted. Casey Concepcion is outstanding. He's gotten better and better and better, and particularly once they put pads on and just his overall development, he's doing really well. The other part of that is Spencer Fano. I watched, Saturday was sort of the day he won the job. I watched every rep he took that day, and he was great. And, we saw the whole thing with him and Jared Verse, and it seems like Jared Verse is deliberately trying to push Spencer Fano to make him the best version of himself possible, and it's working. And that part is really exciting because it's not just can Spencer Fano block Jared Verse in pass protection. It's all the ability he has on the run game. In a three run plays in a row, I saw him buck it out to get out in space to the left. I saw him reach Mason Graham going to the right, and I saw him go second level easily. Like, those are things that make a running game really interesting from the coaching standpoint, because you can do so many things with a player like that.
So you've mentioned 3 rookies. What are your thoughts of the rookie class? Again, we liked last year's rookie class, and I made the point, boy, they didn't get any premium positions. Well, you've talked about 2 wide receivers and a left tackle. Those are premium positions.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early. We want to see what these guys do when the games count, but I think this class has been really good so far. The guys I mentioned, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is really coming on, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in preseason. I'm really curious to see how Austin Barber fares, because I like the way he's been practicing. I think he's a guy who's going to get better. I like the situation he's in where he's playing only tackle. We may see him on both sides, but I think he's in a really good spot from a developmental standpoint. And then Justin Jefferson has been a guy, I think the last couple of days of camp has really been coming on and making a lot of plays in pass coverage, the rookie linebacker. And then Carson Ryan is being asked to do 17 different things. I think it's fair to wonder how good he is at any of them at this point, but just the sheer amount that's being put on his plate. I've seen him line up as an inline tight end, fullback, out in space, all kinds of stuff, and he's hanging in. So I'm curious to see if he's going to sort of break out maybe in a game environment. And then the draft class is always a big deal, but like the undrafted rookies are really interesting. I think one guy who's standing out, I think is a really good shot to make the team, is Michael Coach Jr., the corner. They've been cross-training him both on the outside and in the slot, which I think is really intriguing and a good indication of his possibility of making this team.
Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report and I are going to step aside to quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Spencer Fano to talk a little bit more about the O-line and little defense as well. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Earlier this week, rookie left tackle Spencer Fano got to work out and kind of pick the brain of Browns Hall of Fame left tackle Joe Thomas. Fano was asked about working out with the Hall of Famer.
It was so freaking cool. I mean, we had him in there in the meetings, and it's crazy just sitting next to a dude that has really done it all at the highest level. I don't think there's anyone that's done it at a higher level than him. And for him to give me some of his knowledge and to help teach me while I was out here was so freaking cool. It was amazing.
What's one tip you picked up from him?
I asked him a lot of the post-practice things that he'd work on. So I feel kind of his post-practice drills was a big thing for me, just how I can get better every day.
So, Pete, it's kind of interesting. We always talk about, rookies learning. The thing I found interesting about that is he had a specific thing that he wanted to find out from Thomas. And you're seeing it with Verse, and you're seeing it with Joe Thomas, and I'm sure you're seeing it with Warhop. They realize this guy's got to be a player. What has your takeaway from Fano been? Because I know you're paying attention to him out there as well.
The biggest thing with him is his attitude. He's just he's a happy worker. I mean, just how he is, you saw in that video, that's how he is on everything. He's just a happy guy, really likes what he's doing, and is excited to work every day. And you worry, I think you get a 21-year-old kid into camp, and you worry that maybe Jared Verse is going to maybe overwhelm him and maybe discourage him a little bit. That has not been an issue. And I think the Browns were even cautious of the possibility of that with all their rookies, which is sort of the tack they took with him. But he's responded, and he's been there getting better every day. So I think so much of this is attitude and the desire to get better and being in love with what he's doing, and he has all of that.
So former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger on the importance of the interior offensive line. This from Cleveland Browns Daily.
Well, he had, when he was in Baltimore, he had Tyler Linderbaum, who was that guy and just got paid to be that guy with the Raiders now. I thought they were excellent inside. John Simpson, Linderbaum, like they had real guys inside. And when Derrick Henry's running for almost 2,000 yards and Lamar's doing, like it started inside. You got to be able to slice and dice these guys up inside. The defensive tackles are only getting bigger. The linebackers are free to run in this league when they are. And you've got to be able to get to the second level if you're going to establish a run game. And so inside is where that all starts.
So Pete, let's move it to the Browns. What are your takeaways? You've got 3 new guys that will form the interior of the Browns offensive line. We've been concerned about it. What have you seen from the center and the 2 guards?
Yeah, at the risk of making a fool of myself, I really like what I see from Zion Johnson. Like, and him and Fano are just so athletic. I really like what they can be. So I'm really intrigued on where that goes. I think Elton Jenkins is a perfectly fine center, and I think that's where he's going to end up being because of some variables, including the fact that Parker Brailsford has been out a little bit, and I think the Browns just don't want to mess with it. They want a veteran center, and Elton Jenkins can handle that job. The concern is right guard. They were without Tevin Jenkins for a little bit, and KT Leviston got a ton of reps with the first team. They love his power and his punch, which would be great for the running game. The issue is consistency. And then, one of the days I watched him in pass pro individual drills, he didn't win a rep. So that is obviously terrifying from that standpoint. And then the second Tevin Jenkins comes back, he's inserted right into the starting lineup. And Tevin Jenkins is certainly talented, can be a good player, but the problem is he's really struggled to stay healthy. And you basically have to plan for what is going to happen when he gets hurt because it's going to happen. So I think right guard is the sore thumb right now of the offensive line in general. I think the right side as a whole has some questions. I think the left side is going to be pretty good, has been good, and we'll see if that carries over. But that's sort of where I'm at right now.
All right, let's flip it over to the defense. Mike Rutenberg, new defensive coordinator. Quincy Williams, the Browns free agent signing at linebacker, knows him well. Talked about Rutenberg.
Yeah, man, that's my dog. It's like my brother for real, off the field and on the field, as far as like work and personal life too, though. He likes to add value to people, but the biggest thing is off the field. Once you be able to get to you off the field, on the field, you'll be able to fight for anybody.
Is that where your connection has kind of blossomed, that idea that like you trust him beyond just on the field? You have this all-field connection?
I know his family. He knows my family. He was actually there with me when my daughter was born and stuff like that. So think about it. Anytime he make a call or something like that, I'm full-fledged believing in it, and I'm also instilling in the defense like, hey, don't worry about the call. We can trust this man. So that's kind of like what you get from it, just from a personal aspect, because when it's time to work, I know his why, he know my why. I know he's coming to work for a reason, and he knows for a fact I'm coming to work for a reason. And then on top of that, when things get tired, like training camp, it happens a lot. You get low. He reminds me, he was like, man, your girl and your daughter, they need to be fed. So I'll be like, all right, man, I got to feed your fam too. So that's my biggest thing.
So it's kind of interesting. The 2 guys who have become vocal leaders are Quincy Williams and Jared Verse. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, neither one of them shuts up, and Jared Verse is a lot like Quincy Williams, except he can't modulate his voice. So you hear every single word Jared Verse says, which means the offense hears every single word Jared Verse says. So yeah, that part has been great, and I think the energy has been infectious in terms of that. I think in some ways, I think Alex Wright and some of these other players on the front are feeding off of what Jared Verse is doing and giving them some added confidence from that standpoint. So I think that has been good. And I think the combination of that and the idea that this group needs to prove themselves without Myles Garrett, I think no one denies that Myles Garrett is a phenomenal football player. But I think without him, there is sort of a little bit of a desire to prove that it wasn't just Myles Garrett that made this defense go. And guys like Alex Wright and some of these other players are trying to make a name for themselves and say that we're good defense even without him.
So they've been really good in training camp. How good do you think this defense is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question right now, I think, is depth. I think if we turn injuries off, and I'm begging the NFL to do this at any point, third corner, the defensive tackle and defensive end both have some questions. I think both of those positions are basically 3 guys deep at this point. That's not great. I never worry about linebacker, and I think safety is pretty stacked. But I like what I'm seeing from the defense overall, but it's tough without the consistency. We haven't seen a whole lot of Mike Hall lately. Malik Collins has yet to practice. Mason Graham looks terrific. We haven't seen a whole lot of Schlesinger, even though I think he's going to be great. So you're also missing a few pieces with this, and I think they're managing some guys like Tyson Campbell and Denzel Ward and trying to sort of coach up to find some answers behind them. But that's the biggest question. If the Browns get into injury territory or run into some other problems along those lines, you could see a precipitous effect on the rest of the defense.
With the addition of Williams and the rookie, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, have they significantly improved, the back 6, back 7, however they line things up, do you think?
Well, we're seeing a whole lot of 3 safety looks and Miles Harden coming in as the corner. I think Mike Rutenberg does a really good job in coaching that group up and getting them to be sound. I'm very intrigued to see how this plays out because they do show a lot of different coverages, disguises, all these other elements, and various ways he wants to blitz. How is that going to come together without sort of losing their shirt in the process is certainly going to be something to watch, even this first preseason game. So I think it will be more sound than it was under Jim Schwartz, which is not, which is, I think, a frustration a lot of people had, where there would be games where that defense was absolutely lights out, and there would be games like against the Titans where they were just completely bewildered as Cam Ward just took this team apart. It made no sense. So I think he might have a stabilizing effect on that unit, which should help them sort of be a little bit more consistent, even if they're not quite as spectacular.
Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report and I are going to subside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll look a little bit ahead to the game coming up against the Bears on Saturday. What is the most intriguing, and what are you looking forward to? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Pete Smith from the Orange and Brown Report. Former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger on the player that he's most intrigued with watching on the Browns roster.
I think right now it's going to be Jared Verse. Like, I'm a big Jared Verse fan. I was with him at the SAC Summit, and it was amazing, Andrew. Like, Von Miller, Max Crosby, Willie McGinnis, they all recognize the talent he has, and they feel like there is a big jump to be made. Yes, everybody knows his power. Everybody knows his work ethic and how hard he plays. But, like, there is a finesse side to the game. There is some things that he can really do off of his power game that can take him to another level. Like, I think Jared Verse is ready to pop.
Hey, that's kind of interesting. It really wouldn't surprise me. It's a little bit of a different style of defense. What do you think of Verse? And who are you most intrigued to see in pads in a game against a different team?
As far as Verse goes, I think he's actively trying to work in improving in areas where he isn't where he wants to be. There are times he certainly goes with the bull rush, but he's trying to really hammer home some of the other moves he's trying to utilize and get better with so he can finish more plays. But overall, look, man, you can't help but not want to see particularly these rookie offensive linemen, Fano and Barber. Obviously, we're not going to see, probably not going to see Brailsford yet. How do they hold up how does the physicality look against another opponent? How do they move around? Are they as advertised? I mean, the whole thing was last year the Browns were not very athletic up front and very limited in what they could do. These are two players that seemingly really open up the playbook for the running game, which is going to be a critical part of the team's success, both this season and moving forward. So can those guys move people off the ball? Does it look too much for them initially? Do they look like guys that are going to be part of this team for years to come?
I'm most curious to see Denzel Boston. He's looked so good. I'm kind of curious, is he that big? Is he that fluid? Is he that good against another team?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's what I said with him is he is doing it against real corners. Like, yeah, I mean, for a while you've seen him go against depth. But like Tyson Campbell and Denzel Ward and those guys, he's still pretty automatic in terms of when he wants to run a stop route or a comeback, he's going to shake them loose. He has the ability to make plays down the field. He's really, really impressed as far as what he's capable of. So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where you basically, with him and Casey Concepcion, you're hoping that they're just going to carry this over and we're going to see big plays for them and what they can do with the ball in their hands.
So what do you expect to see from this offense in this first preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to run the football. Obviously, I don't think we're going to see much Judkins, and if we do, that's not great. The idea that they want to ride him the whole season and then start doing that in the preseason is ill-advised, to say the least. But we might get to see Dylan Sampson to sort of help simulate what this thing's going to look like, and certainly Raheem Sanders and Amani Marshall. And obviously, Quinshon Judkins is the bell cow, and deservedly so. He looks like a stud. But I think the Browns actually have a surprising amount of depth, so those other guys could actually be successful so long as the blocking up front works. And what's going to be interesting to see is what they do in terms of the running game. They've done a lot more gap than I think Kevin Stefanski did in his tenure here. We may see more pulling. We may see more traps and stuff like that, which should be a better use of the guys they have. So, yeah, that's just going to be important. And then the fact that they have what they have is more talent outside. How our defense is going to play it. Are we going to see 8 guys in the box? And obviously, preseason, they're not really game planning, but this is something that we're going to want to see. Are we going to see space for these guys to run? And if we have it, is that going to portend good things for the Browns?
So the other thing is, we know we're going to see Deshaun Watson. What do you need to see from Deshaun Watson to feel better about the beginning part of the season if he's in fact the starter?
I need to see consistency. There have been days where he's been really strong at camp, not very many of them. And then there have been days where it's been up and down, and then there have been days where it's been pretty bad. So, I mean, like, find some consistency. And the biggest thing is, like, Deshaun Watson will just have situations where he's just not hitting throws that he needs to hit, that an NFL quarterback needs to hit. And those are the things that I think limit his ceiling. So if he's trying to make a strong argument for himself, it's make the plays that are there and make them consistently. I don't need him to make a ton of spectacular plays. Yes, that would be really helpful. It'd be great if they suddenly are up and down the field and making explosive plays. But just consistently move the ball, get the ball out of your hands. Don't take the stupid sacks that he's taken or drop his eyes or try to run into nothing. Just be a smart, efficient quarterback.
All right, what are you paying really close attention to in the game against the Bears?
I mean, for me, it's all about youth and these guys, the rookies in particular, and then seeing guys who are trying to make rosters and guys who I think are going to make rosters, but how much better are they? So I'll give you an example. Chase Edmonds and Donovan McMillan are 2 safeties that I think are going to make this roster. I think they're going to end up being the 4th and 5th safety of this group. I want to see what they do because Chase Edmonds, I think, is leading the team in picks in training camp so far, and he's really come on strong. Donovan McMillan has had a number of big plays. And then, obviously, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. We want to see what he can do. The range is impressive. His length is impressive. Like, can he start being a playmaker? Because one of the things that you and I have talked about this team, particularly last year, was we don't cause any turnovers. And these are the guys that you're hoping are going to be able to find a way to turn over the football and put the offense into good spots to help them score points. And so I want to see that. So I want to see some life in that area where suddenly it looks like a team that's going to create takeaways.
So what would be really good things to see? And then also, what would be things if you see you're like, that's not great. I'm concerned about that.
I think the answer to both things is the offensive line. I mean, I think if they can move people off the ball and consistently create running lanes and protect the quarterback, that's going to be good. If it's inconsistent, or maybe we're having run plays where maybe they're getting a decent amount, but maybe they could get a whole lot more, or 4 guys out of 5 are good up front, and the 5th guy is giving up some leakage and causing some problems for the quarterback. Those are things that worry you. Now, some of this is a matter of where we are in training camp, and the offensive line is a work in progress. They've obviously overhauled the whole thing, and we've got a lot to do in that group. But this is the first time everybody's going to get to see it, and you want to make a good impression. You want to make this look like they can. That there's reason to believe that they're going to be able to get the job done when they open the season in Jacksonville.
All right, before I let you go, who is somebody that might be a little under the radar that you think kind of pops in the first week of preseason?
I'll go with Raheem Sanders. I'm a big Raheem Sanders fan. I liked him out of college. Look, the thing that's funny about training camp is because the Browns don't go to the ground, you don't get to see just how strong he is and how he runs the football. But he does that well. He's also a really good pass catcher, or has been a really good pass catcher. I think Raheem Sanders is a guy who could be a big-time player in the preseason and really make a statement.
Pete, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Pete Smith, make sure you check him out. Really good and insightful Browns coverage. Check him out at the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham. Sports for CLE will continue. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. National NFL reporter Charles Robinson talking about why he thinks Deshaun Watson is starting the Browns' first preseason game.
I think because he's the veteran, and I think it's probably what Todd is most comfortable with, right now. And by the way, I know you only got a couple seconds here. I do think it does matter, even though they will tell you don't, because they both will start a preseason game. I think it matters who goes first, because that player, especially if he plays really well, that drops an anchor into the thought process of, okay, we've seen him play well. You don't want to say he's the leader in the clubhouse at that point, but it kind of cements in your mind. And then, by the way, it also puts pressure on the next guy, because now Shedor's got to think about that. Okay, if Deshaun plays really well, now I feel pressure to push it. Gotcha. So I'm different than other people. I think that who came out first does matter.
Now let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, you've been at every training camp practice. Where does this thing sit between Shedeur and Deshaun?
Well, I think I had it right on. I wrote Monday, after the big thing on Saturday, when he changed his mind and told us, that it was going to be Shedeur, and then it switched to Watson. I said, in my story that I felt that he probably would start Watson the first preseason game. Tea leaves are pointing that way. Sanders would go the second one. It makes sense to have Sanders at home opening and not, throwing Watson out there to start at the first home game. But I go back more so to the quotes. Put a quote in there. I don't remember it verbatim, but paraphrasing it, is that Monken and the quarterback coach, Mike Bajakian, both have said the most important part of this for the quarterbacks in their view is the process. And we've heard more about cadence. We've heard more about, operation and getting them lined up and pre-snap and all that stuff. And as I told you on this show in the off season, when they opened it up to an open competition, I think Deshaun Watson, he's a 10-year veteran. He's been, even if he doesn't play that great, he's going to be better at that pre-snap stuff. The quarterback has to get everybody lined up. They have to make sure that, the defense and what they're doing and change things up so everybody's on the same page. I don't think Shedeur has ever really had to do that on a long scale basis. And that doesn't mean that Shedeur won't at some point take over. But I think to start the season, I believe, even though I think Shedeur after the snap has looked better than Watson, at least at the beginning of the camp, that they would start the season on the road in Florida against two good teams, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, because I just think Todd Monken, when it comes down to it, he's going to go with the veteran who he thinks gives him the best chance to win. Now, if things don't go well down there and they lose 2 games, I can see him pulling the plug and turning it over to Sanders. That's just right now the way I feel I see things going. That could change. I do think the basis of these 2 games will matter, and especially next week practicing with the Bills. If one of the quarterbacks looks really bad and gets eaten alive by the Bills, then I think the other one will have a chance. So I do think it matters. I do think that if Watson gets a half this week and he plays really well, that will really put him in the driver's seat. So we'll see.
Joel Bitonio, who retired in the offseason, talking about the importance of diversity in any run game, especially the Browns. This is from Browns Training Camp Insider.
When you see that diversity in the run game, what does that tell you?
Yeah, it's cool. I think our best years here were with Coach Callahan.
Yep.
Diverse in the run game. We ran outside zone, but we had a lot of counters. We had a lot of pulls. We had a lot of G schemes to the outside. And I think we saw a snippet of that today. It was probably part of the install or something they wanted to work on. And then just having the threat of a quarterback run, if it's Deshaun, if it's Shedeur, where they can keep the ball when they want to, it leaves one guy unblocked. And that helps the offense anytime you can do that.
So I use that to set up the story that you wrote about Deuce Staley, Browns running back coach, talking about Quinshon Judkins. Had high praise for him. What are your thoughts about what you heard from Staley on Judkins? And I know you wrote an article about it for the OBR.
Yeah, I think it went on there today, and it's on the front page. Staley just said the sky's the limit for him. And, he's a pretty tough-minded coach. He says what's on his mind. But I think if you look at things, last year at this time, Quinshon Judkins wasn't even on the team in training camp. If you remember, he had off-the-field allegations, and that didn't get settled till about this time. I think it was about the 15th, 16th of August. And then, for whatever reason, to get things all settled with his contract, didn't really get him into camp, if you remember, until right after the first game. I think he got here. He didn't play in the first game, so he missed the whole training camp. And they threw him right in the second game. And he went on to have over 800 yards with no training camp, no real getting acclimated. And then he broke his leg and dislocated his ankle. All in all, he missed 3 games. And I think he easily would have went over 1,000 yards. All you have to do is look at Todd Monken the last 3 years with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. They were at the top in the rushing. Their offense was number 1 composite over 3 years, and he leaned heavy on the running game. Now, I'm not saying that Quinshon Judkins is Derrick Henry, but I do think that to make this offense go, you're going to have a good running game. Another thing that I'll say, last year, I think Judkins, when he played, was one of the leaders, if not the leader, among the NFL of running backs after contact. But I can remember him many times getting hit at the line of scrimmage or even, behind the line of scrimmage. He had no room. That offensive line last year was really injured, and they weren't good in the running game. So they went out and made a big effort and overhauled the offensive line. We still don't know if in the running game they're going to be better, but you have to think they're going to be better. And if they can just give the guy a push, a little crease, I think Judkins can get a lot of yards. He didn't have a great yards per carry, and a lot of it's because he was hit at the line of scrimmage. They couldn't throw the ball, so they stacked the box to stop him. He was their best weapon. I think you got more weapons this year, but it's going to ultimately come down to the blocking and the quarterback, if he can throw the ball and get the passing game going. But I think what Staley's talking about is the sky is the limit. If he can get a little crease, I think he could develop into the type of runner Nick Chubb was. And I think that's going to be a big effort to get the running game going.
How confident are you that they can figure it out with the offensive line? There's a number of guys, they're versatile, so you would think they can find something that resembles an average NFL offensive line.
Well, I think that the biggest thing is they got to get it settled. They've had injuries, and they haven't really had the five out there. They just named Fano. So you got 4 of the 5 settled. The right guard seems to be in flux. I think they're going to be with Elton Jenkins at center because Parker Brailsford just has had a wrist injury and hasn't been out there for a while. Luke Whippler is still recovering. He might start this week because Elton Jenkins wasn't out there for whatever reason yesterday. So I don't know. But right guard Tevin Jenkins would be the right guard likely. He was out for over a week. KT Leviston, trying to convert him from right tackle to guard, and he didn't really seize the opportunity at guard. So Tevin Jenkins right now, I think, will be the right guard, but they're looking at other guys to see. So they got to get the 5, and they got to get the 5 playing together. I don't know if individually they're all individually great players, but if the 5 can play together as one and just stay on the field, I think that will make much bigger difference than last year. You had 13 different starting, I think, offensive lineups, and that's never going to work. So get 5, get them going, and hopefully they can stay on the field. That's one of the characteristics of the guys they brought in: Zion Johnson, Titus Howard, Elton Jenkins. Most of them had played, the majority of the games they were active.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, and I are going to take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about Brown's roster, what to look for in that first preseason game Saturday against the Bears. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Charles Robinson, national NFL reporter, talking about the young talent on the Browns roster.
There's depth. It's not just the Casey and Denzel show, which I've seen a ton of clips going into that practice, but definitely one of the things that I think you notice is when you stack 2 really good draft classes and you get out and you watch practices, you see all these young guys just providing so much juice. And I told you guys Jared Verse was going to wreak havoc. I told people this. Nobody listened to me. Everybody was angry. And the funny thing is that I went through Rams, and, you know, it obviously you talk about Myles Garrett, but I will tell you, their locker room was initially, you know, and I think some of it's friendship, but also because they knew what kind of teammate he was. You know, they were upset that Verse got traded in that deal. You know, they were happy to have Myles in, but there were certainly guys in that locker room that I think were had their nose out of a joint because they felt like they lost a really good young player.
So, Fred, you've seen him all training camp long, and I know you've written an article about Verse. What are your thoughts? How good is this guy? How good can he be? He's only his third year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say right up front, he's not Myles Garrett. He's not going to have 20-some sacks, but who does? But I think he's a leader, much more even vocal and lead by example than what I saw with Myles Garrett. He kind of is a different personality and kind of stayed to himself. I think he was a reluctant leader just because he was so good that he was forced into, you know, getting up and talking and being like a captain. But Verse, it just kind of comes naturally since he's joined the team. He's kind of like he even said it as the interview we had with him that he feels like he's been here several years. You know, he hit the ground running, but he doesn't take time off as far as on the field. He's playing 100 miles an hour all the time. He's hungry, and he's making the other guys better as well. One of the stories, you know, I'm writing about Spencer Fano. Fano just said how they fought the other day, but at the end of the day, they're teammates. They both want to win, and that's one of the reasons Monken names Fano the starter. He kind of unlocked a little fire that they wanted to see out of Spencer Fano, and Verse is pushing his teammates. I think he's going to make, you know, everybody around him better. I don't know if the defense will be better than what they've been. You got a new coordinator. You got a new defensive end in Verse. You got a lot of different key changes, but I don't see a big drop-off, you know, other number of sacks. I think by committee, other guys are going to get more sacks, and that's going to, you know, help the team so you're not relying on one guy. But, you know, Jared Verse, I mean, I knew at the beginning, I was pretty sure they were getting a really good player, but he so far seems to be even, you know, better than I was thinking he was going to be.
Another guy that is new, free agent linebacker Quincy Williams, similar to Verse, and he's vocal. So that the defense added two guys that have played in the league that are both vocal. Do you get a feel that the defense has a little bit of a different personality, a little bit of a different edge to it?
Yeah, I do. Mike Rutenberg talked to him this week, and he's bouncing off the walls. If you watch any of the video clips of the interviews, you know, that I did of our just talking to him, he's got cool little cliches, you know, about the ball is oxygen, and so far it's paid off. I mean, they've had 19 interceptions in training camp. Now, I don't know if that's all on how great the defense is or it's on the quarterbacks, but that's what they preach. And he still talks about the defensive line being the engine like Jim Schwartz, but he's coming from he was a secondary coach, linebackers coach, and he unlocked Quincy Williams when he was with the Jaguars and when he was with the Jets. I mean, Quincy Williams was all pro, and he's very vocal. He knows exactly what Rutenberg wants. And so he's like a coach on the field. You can see him, even though he's new here, he's getting everybody lined up. So I think from that aspect, I thought Devin Bush played very well. Had the best year he's had since he's been with the Browns, and he got paid. He went to the Bears. But I think Quincy Williams, you know, really could even be an improvement opposite Carson Schlesinger because he plays so well in this defense. And so, Yeah, I think that I'm pleasantly surprised with what I see. I think you're going to see a different twist than what you saw in the Jim Schwartz defense, because I do think, although they always talk about turnovers, that makes so much of a difference. And if they can just create half the turnovers they have in training camp, that'll go a long way for this offense, for the Browns, to get the ball back in better field position. And last year the Browns were -7 at the 27th in the NFL in the turnover ratio. So that's a big determination in a game, and I think that's what they're striving for, and that's all they're preaching. Oxygen, getting the ball. So we'll see.
All right, so first preseason game Saturday at 1. What are you paying close attention to in that one?
Well, obviously the quarterback, that goes so long and what everything happens, but take that away. I want to see what the offensive line can do, if they can, protect the quarterback, open up a lane or two, maybe get the running back, Quinshon Judkins, can get, a crease, see what they have in the running game. But then I'm anxious to see these young guys. So far, Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion have translated from the OTAs and mini camp to training camp, and they look like they're ready to go. Denzel Boston makes plays every day, and now Concepcion lately has been doing it too. I think the light has started to click for both of them. And Isaiah Bond is another one. I mean, he made a tremendous play yesterday. Sanders threw it where only he could get it. He made a completely outstretched diving catch for like a 42-yard pickup. And so those three guys alone, I think, will add a major addition to the offense. A little bit with the running game, and then an overhaul of the wide receivers. If you can just get the quarterbacks, get the ball to those guys, I think that the offense will look so much better. So I'm really looking at the offense to see if they can carry over some things we've seen in the playmaking abilities.
What would be concerning if you see this in preseason? And we got to keep in mind it's preseason week 1. But what would be something that if you saw, you'd be like, man, that's concerning?
Well, I mean, the Browns' defense has dominated most of training camp, and you kind of expected them to be ahead. If the Bears' defense dominates the offense right off the bat, it wouldn't be much different. I think the Bears have a good defense. They're considered a playoff team, but I think if the Browns' defense gets shredded, by Caleb Williams, maybe it won't be against first team, might not be, they might have more, get back to the drawing board. But all the way around, if the offense doesn't, if the quarterbacks can't even throw the ball and everything's much like last year, yeah, it's going to be concerning, but it is the first preseason game. I don't expect I see anybody that's got any little dings being held out. And if that's said, if Denzel Ward and Tyson Campbell don't play at cornerback, as they've been kind of held out a bit without Carson Schlesinger, Caleb Williams might light this defense up. I don't know.
Yeah. Fred Greetham, a senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks, Dave.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.